Hello and welcome to another episode of Anfield Watch. Today we're going to be discussing the top 5 Wonderkids to watch out from Liverpool's academy in 2025. And to do that, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Lewis Bauer, who probably needs no introduction, but he's the go-to guy when it comes to Liverpool's academy. If you haven't seen his stuff, do check it out on Twitter because he's always posting about Liverpool's academy and he's very much in touch with that side of the club. Lewis, I'm delighted to have you on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Correct name pronunciation, which doesn't happen too often, but happy to be on.
Yeah, I probably should have asked that beforehand, but it looks like I nailed it anyway. So to sort of preface this a little bit, we're going to be talking about 5 Liverpool Academy products that we think are the ones to watch in 2025, but we're not going to be mentioning the obvious names here, like the Rio Ngamua, Amara Nallo or Trey Anyoni, who've already made their debuts at first team level, even Trent Kone-Doherty, who also made his debut. So we're going to be focusing on the players who could be making their debut or could be coming closer to the first team in this calendar year and maybe potentially be involved in pre-season in the summer and stuff like that. So it's not going to be the obvious name. So if you're here to sort of hear about Ngamua, you're not going to get that here. But sort of to begin with, I think the first name that really stands out for me, and we're going to do this positionally, so we've sort of drawn up a short list of 5 players together, me and Lewis. And the first name that stands out on the list for me is Kornel Misciur, who is a goalkeeper at 17 years old. He's already playing for Liverpool's under-21 side in the Premier League 2. And he's actually also, we're kind of cheating here because he has been involved in a first team squad in the League Cup. He did travel to Brighton and he was involved with the first team a little bit. But I think we can get away with that one, can't we, Lewis?
Yeah. Probably similar to another player we'll mention in Kieran Morrison is a slight grey area with Misciur and Morrison. But Misciur has definitely earned his praise over the past 12, 18 months since he joined from Hull City. He's definitely a player who's a bit more closer to my heart, from the same area. And he's always been very, very well rated. Before he joined Liverpool, it was Manchester City, Brighton, Chelsea who were in for him. And is recognised as one of the top prospects within his country. For those who don't know, he's eligible for Poland through his parents, born in England. And I'm actually quite surprised that he's not received a call-up for any of those national teams for how well he's doing. I don't know if there may be some passport issues there or anything, but I imagine especially within the Polish scene, who do always produce good goalkeepers, they'd be looking to get him in and around the setup. But what stands out in terms of how well he's rated is Liverpool do seem to be quite tentative when it comes to promoting goalkeepers. We don't often see players moving up there he's still eligible for the under-18s. He's pretty much the under-21 goalkeeper for this season, with Harvey Davis alternating very, very slightly every so often. But the likes of Davis himself really had to wait and bide his time in the under-18s. Even as a first-year scholar, he didn't play too much for the under-18s. And Misciur's been trusted to take place between the 6 of the under-21s. He's been the under-19 goalkeeper in the UF Youth League, which is the premier competition, the one everybody wants to do well in. And in that competition, he's really shone. It's fair to say, as with all young goalkeepers, prone to an error in the build-up, which he'll probably be the first to admit. But some of the saves that he's made has really kept Liverpool in the tournament, and it was by the skin of the teeth that they stayed in the group stage. I don't know what you thought of him, if you've seen any of the games.
Yeah, I think what really stands out to me is he's only 17, but his frame is already quite big for a goalkeeper. He's got a big frame, and I think that goes to show like he's got potential as a goalkeeper. For me, I always look at that. but I think his sort of reactions and reflexes as well, they're top notch. Like you said, maybe on the ball he's not perfect, but you don't expect him to be, because he was at Hull City for much of his sort of younger career. He's still a very young player, but his youth days he was at Hull City, and they probably don't play that kind of football there. I mean, maybe there will be Hull City fans who will correct me now and they'll say they do, but you know, he's come into Liverpool, and I think the strides that he's made are really impressive. And like you said, it is quite unprecedented that we see a 17-year-old goalkeeper take these sort of steps and play for the under-21s and even be sort of tentatively involved with the first team. So that goes to show, I think, the kind of talent and potential that he has.
Yeah. On his frame, he was obviously not in terms of his ability, but his body shape and his frame really does remind me of Alisson, with like the big stocky shoulders. He's got a really like wide span of his arms. It really does seem similar to Alisson in terms of his build and to the way he like claws away shots. I think there's comparisons to be made, but as you say, it's not going to be perfect in the build up. And I think what's interesting is the next step for him. There's definitely a situation, you would say, with goalkeepers at Liverpool. Obviously, it's always hard for a young goalkeeper to break in any team, especially a top team. But with the goalkeepers at Liverpool have on their books, we wouldn't be expecting him to be breaking in the next year or so anyways. And football's careers are short. And what we have seen Liverpool do is utilise maybe like the non-league route for goalkeepers in the past couple of seasons, or areas maybe you wouldn't expect. The players, Jawko Bordzinski was sent to Wales. Mrozek's recently been in Sweden. Now he's playing in the National League with Forest Green Rovers, and we've even seen the likes of Peter Luger drop down to Macclesfield, who I don't know the exact step, but maybe like for the eighth tier or so. And it's just about getting the minutes for these young goalkeepers, and obviously there's only one goalkeeper on the matchday squad, so it can be hard to find the perfect scenario there. And in terms of his potential ability and getting used to men's football, I probably wouldn't waste time and probably look at getting him something sorted out for the next season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think maybe there is a sort of chance for him in pre-season in the first team, because obviously, like you mentioned, the goalkeeper situation at Liverpool, Kevin Kelleher probably could potentially be moving on.
Yeah.
Vitaslav Jarosz, his contract is expiring. I'm not sure when Alisson and Mamardashvili, or if Mamardashvili is going to be involved in this pre-season for Liverpool. So potentially, if Kelleher leaves, Jarosz's contract doesn't get extended, which likely will not get extended, then maybe there is a chance for him to get involved in pre-season. But then, like you said, the best step for him, I think, is to go out on loan and get some first team minutes and some regular football, whatever the level that might be. Well, let's sort of move on to the next player. And like I said, we're going to do this positionally. So we're going to be talking about a right back now called DJ Esdaille. He's an England youth international, also eligible to play for St Kitts and Nevis, like another sort of former current academy player, I should say, in Kyle Kelly, who's a senior international for St Kitts and Nevis. Yeah. DJ Esdaille, though, I think has potential to play for England, and he's represented England at youth level, and he's a really interesting player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very well-rounded. I've seen him play both the full-back roles, really, in terms of somebody who can come inside in the midfield and somebody who can hold the width and get down the outside. And yeah, I think I'd like to see a bit more of him in the attacking sense, playing the more traditional full-back role. To be honest, he's had a couple of really annoying injuries where as soon as he looks like he's getting some momentum, he's just missed 2 or 3 games and he's back in the team. I think what's really telling is in the opening UEFA Youth League matches that there was only 2 first-year scholars who played. out of Rion Gamoa, who we would all expect with a big reputation to come in there. And it was DJ Esdaille, who is a Scouser, it's worth mentioning. He was a proper traditional Scouse player. And yeah, he's a real good technical player. He's good at cutting through the middle of the pitch, carrying the ball. And he's good high up, combining with his winger. I would like to see him cross the ball more. Just in terms, not saying that that's something that he can't do, just in terms of seeing what he does have to offer overall. But defensively, one-on-one, it's very rare over the course of the 90 minutes the winger will clearly get the best of him. He's always well in the game, and his one-on-one defending is good enough, I would say. And it is a player to watch out for. I think he's got a few leadership qualities about him as well. The under-18s have been up against it at times this season, you would say, and he's a player who's really stood up and shone.
I think right-backs as well, Liverpool tend to just produce quite a lot of them, obviously. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Conor Bradley, but Neco Williams doing very well at Nottingham Forest as well. So there is a tradition there at Liverpool. I wanted to sort of ask you, in terms of his profile, like, is he more of a Bradley type of a right back, or is he a Trent Alexander-Arnold type, or is he somewhere in between?
I think he's somewhere in between, but skewing more towards the Bradley side with the high intensity and the good work rate. But he's somebody we generally just need to see more of in terms of what we can offer. Sometimes with these things, it's difficult to tell whether the players are playing to an instruction or playing to the natural game. He could have an insane range of passing that we've not seen yet, but he's just instructed to carry the ball or to just use his winger. But yeah, he played it in the as an under-16 player in the tournament out in Northern Ireland. For the under-18s, inverting in that role, and he did very well there. But Liverpool do have a great record. I wouldn't even just say that it's right backs, just full backs in general. Liverpool just seem to have a knack for making players who are going to have good careers in the professional game. The likes of Owen Beck, Luke Chambers doing very well. Even the likes of Luke Stevenson has moved into that role and done well. So there's criticism at the moment probably for Liverpool coaching setup in the academy realms, whether it's warranted or not, but they know how to develop players and they know what these players need. So it's going to be exciting to see him get more minutes and progress. He's made his under-21 debut, who's in the squad in the EFL trophy. So it shows that he's well thought of within the setup, and he's one that probably brings the most intrigue because we've not seen too much of him yet, and what we have seen is exciting.
Yeah, and I would say it is important that you mentioned the results, because Liverpool under-18s and under-21s have sort of struggled this season. So maybe that's why we haven't seen as much of him offensively as well, and we've seen more the defensive side of his game, which has been really good, but maybe offensively he hasn't really necessarily been able to stand out because Liverpool are, sometimes losing 5-0, 4-0, and it's difficult to stand out in those kind of games, isn't it?
Yeah, it very much feels like the start of a fresh cycle within particularly the under-18 teams. For example, the start of last season, you would have the likes of Jadon Dan started with the under-18s last season, Lewis Koumas is a full international now. This group is slightly less experienced, and there's definitely a conversation to be had in terms of results. But it's just the argument, really. How do you assess the academy? Is it the results? Is it the player development in terms of not even just Liverpool getting these players ready for their careers, bringing the best out of them? Yeah, there's been some difficult times, and even in those periods, Esdaille still managed to stand out.
Absolutely, and now we're going to sort of discuss the attackers who probably maybe even be more difficult for them to stand out because of the results. But one player who's really shone at the under-18 level this season is Joe Bradshaw. And for me, Joe Bradshaw is probably one of the most exciting academy players at the moment. He's in great form, scoring a lot of goals, and he's just a really exciting player. And he's only 16 years old as well, so he's very young still, but already playing at a very high level.
He's eligible for a couple of countries. He's represented both England and Ireland at youth level. He was actually supposed to be in the last Ireland under-17 squad, but for whatever reason, he's not been able to join up with the squad. But yeah, I really like him. I would describe him as he's like a little Tasmanian devil on the pitch. The intensity that he plays with, he eats up the ground very quick, and he's relentless. In terms of his output, when players look at data and numbers, and we look at the amount of shots taken, he's always going to be ranking high there. He's never deterred if something doesn't go his way. He could miss 3 shots, that's fine. He'll score the 4th. And he's relatively quick, but it's the intensity that he plays with, and it is for the team. We've seen him probably take more of a backseat role in the UEFA Youth League this season, where he's maybe had to facilitate other players rather than score the goals himself, and he's done a good job there. So he definitely deserves praise. But yeah, his goal scoring record in the last couple of months it's been quite ridiculous, really. He was signed as an under-13 player from Accrington Stanley, and he's progressed through the ranks ever since. He was the first under-16 to be given a chance last season of the under-18, so that shows how well thought of he is within the club. And yeah, all of his actions are really assertive, and that's something that I like about him. He's got great intent every time he's on the ball.
Yeah, I think when you watch him play, that confidence, he just oozes of confidence. And like you mentioned, the intensity and everything else, he just looks like a real menace, a real handful. And I think what stands out to me is like he's already quite tall for his age, especially for a winger. So he's got that physicality as well. And like you mentioned, once he gets inside the box, he's really good at, first of all, getting himself into the box and getting himself into those scoring opportunities. And once he does, he's also good at putting those chances away. So like he just looks like already quite like a complete player at this under-18 level anyway. And for me, that brings a lot of excitement about his potential and what he can do.
Yeah, his scoring record's actually very impressive. We've seen players here have good seasons with good numbers in the last couple of years, but as a first-year scorer, probably not as impressive as this. But like when Oakley Cannonier had the famous 40-goal season, that was actually in his second year. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he ends up with, what he ends up on. He is very trigger happy in the box, you would say. That's not necessarily a bad thing. He's definitely not shy in terms of pulling the trigger. And that's just all down to his confidence, which is definitely merited at the moment. When he first broke through, it was good. It was almost a question of where he would play. I wouldn't be against seeing him as a striker, which was a thought maybe when he first broke through, but he has played primarily on the right wing this season. But the positions that he found himself up in is often those central goal scoring positions. So it doesn't matter too much, but be interesting to see how he develops, especially as you say, in terms of his physicality, his height. He could very well play that role, I think.
He's definitely one to watch. And another player, I think, Lewis, you said we might be kind of cheating with this one because he's already training with the first team, but it's Kieran Morrison, again, he is someone who's scoring a lot of goals, and he's very much a really exciting player. Different sort of profile to Bradshaw, but at the same time, also a lot of potential and a lot of exciting things that he's doing at academy level already.
Yeah, under 21 regular. I believe he was in the squad in the Champions League against PSV, and not similar in terms of profile, but very similar in terms of personality. Plays with a lot of personality on the pitch, great charisma, and it's almost, it feels a bit lazy because they're quite almost similar in terms of appearance, but he's almost like a right-hand-sided Curtis Jones similar to when he played in the academy level. Picks up those pockets of space. Played as a winger, although not quite your traditional winger, almost a 10, an attacking 8 who likes to go into those pockets. And he's still eligible for the under-18s, but he's an under-21 regular, and he's coping with the physicality quite well, you would say. I really like the way he rides contact and keeps control of the ball. And his ball striking, the consistency of it is ridiculous. That's definitely one of his biggest assets. When he gets in those pockets, he's always going to be a threat with whichever side he's in. And he's got a bit of 1v1 trickery as well. He's definitely capable of a trick or two. And he seems to be well liked by Arne Slot. He's been in first team training this week, and the impression is Arne Slot is very much of a mindset. If you're not good enough, if you can't cope with the intensity, you won't be there. So that bodes extremely well for him. Northern Ireland have an exciting young player on the hands, and it's an interesting next step for him. So you wouldn't say he's necessarily primed yet, ready to go on loan. You'd expect he'd be on the first team pre-season tour, probably if he's training with the first team now, and so it's probably going to be another season in the under 21s for him, similar to Trent Coney-Doherty this season, and then see where we're at.
I think for me, the interesting question with Morrison is where is he going to fit in in senior football? Because at under 21 level, I think he can get away with playing as a winger, but I'm not sure he's got the speed to play that position at a higher level, or the intensity of the senior football, any level, even the Championship or League One. I'm not sure if he is ready to play as a winger. For me, he kind of fits that mold of like an attacking midfielder, like you mentioned. I think he'd slot him well in that position, but physicality maybe is the thing that's kind of holding him back a little bit, because to be in those central positions in adult football, you really need to be quite strong. I mean, if you look at Dominic Szoboszlai, or even the way Curtis Jones has sort of grown his body and has added muscle to his body, Morrison, for me, kind of lacks that a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, it's just going to be in terms of how he physically develops. You look at his skill set, and on the ball, he does fit into maybe that attacking 10, which Dominic Szoboszlai does play. But off the ball, it's night and day, as you say. We've seen the shifts that Szoboszlai's put in recently, and that takes some doing. So to get to that level, he's gonna need to really, really work hard on his body. But the threat that he does have in the pockets, when he does have space, when he does have time, probably makes him a player worth investing in. He's quite tactically flexible as well. He's played off the left as well in the academy. He's played as an 8 in midfield, especially in the UEFA Youth League, where he has similarly had to accommodate for more attacking players. And we've actually seen him play as a false 9 this season in the UEFA Youth League. So he seems... He just needs time, as with all young players. This is one of the biggest clubs in the world. The standards are incredibly high. We're always hearing stories of the small percentage of academy footballers who do actually make it. So he just needs to be afforded the time to develop and play at his own rate. But he does have some very exciting qualities.
I think the technical qualities, and like you mentioned, even Slot has sort of liked the way that he's been training with the first team. So there is definitely a lot of potential there, and I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on. But the last player that we're going to discuss, I think, is equally someone worth keeping an eye on. His name is Josh Sonni-Lambie. He's scoring quite a few goals at under 18 level this season and getting a lot of goal contributions too. He's been playing as a sort of false nine as well for the under 18s, and I think his story is quite interesting because he was spotted at grassroots level in London at under 14 level and then brought to the academy. He just signed his first professional contract in January, so he's obviously highly rated at the club, and there is a lot of potential there, I think.
Yeah, in terms of his story, I think it's worth noting it could be potentially a sign of a change in tact from Liverpool in terms of scouting players from London in grassroots football. It's not something we've seen in many of the scholarship groups in recent years. We do have scouts there now, but this year, quite dissimilarly to other years, there's 3 players from who were scouted playing grassroots football in London. Tyler Martin, who's recently come into the side, and then Schofield Longmany, who we did speak about, who's worth an honourable mention in the conversation here, having a good season. So yeah, that could be something to look at for Liverpool. London is a hotbed of talent. It's almost a different style of football. The cage footballs, that does bring out the 1v1 ability, close control, and Liverpool might be definitely worth looking into that geographically. But in terms of Sonni-Lambie himself, yeah, he is on the team sheet, the striker, the number 9, but he will be constantly looking to drop deep and fill in those gaps on and off the ball. To be fair, he does work extremely hard for the team, and he has a very, very good partnership with Joe Bradshaw, and it's really blossomed as the season's gone on. What I would say, they're almost like yin and yang a little bit, where Bradshaw was is quite trigger happy in the box. I think a criticism of Sonni-Lambie, especially earlier on in the season, it has been a bit hesitant to shoot and maybe held on for the ball a bit too long. But as the season's progressed, is definitely something that is eradicated out of his game. It's definitely the 9 role is definitely one that he's still learning, so that's natural. But he doesn't have those predatory instincts yet, and he's one who's shot up physically in the last year as well, which is quite interesting to see how he will end up in terms of height and how he deals with a contact as well. And he's very much of a modern striker, the Firmino type role, the cunner, with a dash of invention in him as well. He's a really smooth dribbler of a ball. He's good in tight spaces, and he's definitely a player to watch for me.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned, and I'm glad that you mentioned the Firmino comparisons, because I see that too. I think that the profile that he has is very similar to Firmino. He's got the technical qualities, but he's also like the work rate off the ball and the energy that he brings is really important to this under 18 side. And I think these are all qualities that when we're sort of listening to Arne Slot talk about what he wants from his attackers, he says he wants a number 9 who's both a goal scorer and a facilitator. And I think when we're looking at Sonni-Lambie, that's essentially him. He is a facilitator and a goal scorer too. Yeah,
it's just the step up from under 18 level to under 21 level. We've seen it so many times. It's almost a completely different beast. We talk about the step up from academy football to first team football in general. We've just seen the small incremental step up in terms of the age groups difficult for some players. So if you can carry that form into it throughout to the end of the season, up it into at the beginning of the next season. I think by next January, he'll likely be promoted to under-21s, you would say. If not sooner, definitely depend on outgoings. And I think it's worth mentioning with a few of these players that they potentially may have got chances in previous years, but the under-21 squad is slightly bloated this season with players who probably should have gone out on loan but haven't, and then players who are injured and coming back, and there's just no space. And very off topic, but you're only allowed 5 substitutes in these academy matches, which is I think stupid, and there's no real rotation there. So some of these players probably do deserve the under-21 call-up. I think Bradshaw in particular it is one that should be there by the end of the season. And him and Sonni-Lambie do seem to enjoy playing with each other a lot. They've been the ever-presence in the under-18 side. They're almost competing with each other for the top scorer. And it's good to watch. It's good to watch them come through together, to be fair.
In terms of pre-season next season, we discussed these 5 names, and we normally see a surprise sort of name being included in pre-season. I think in 2023 it was probably James McConnell who got the call up and then really came into his own and showcased his quality. So I think he's sort of a good example of someone who kind of went under the radar at academy level, but put in a lot of good performances and then really shone when he got that call. Out of these 5 players, who do you think has that sort of wild card, could be that wild card option, for the first team and for pre-season in the summer?
I think in terms of pre-season in the summer, I think we can only look at what we already know. And Morrison is the one who's training with the first team, and he's playing at that high level in the under-21s. He was included in the Champions League squad, so I think he'd probably be the most likely there. I think it probably would be a season too soon for any of the other players, potentially, apart from Misciur. As you say, with the goalkeeping situation, it could almost be almost mandatory that it goes, to be fair. So it probably would be Morrison, and then Liverpool also have a right-back situation on their hands. Who knows where... It does seem like Alexander-Arnold is going to be leaving, as things stand. I would say that seems to be where it's edging. The Conor Bradley situation is, again, off topic, but it's another interesting one. He'll only have 2 years at the end of his contract at the end of the season. Is he ready to be a starting player for Liverpool week in, week out? I don't think it's an outright yes, yeah. And at that point, if the answer is no, does he become a saleable asset to FSG? I think there's just a lot of questions and a lot of things up in the air. And the right backs in front of Esdaille at the moment, Mabea and Davidson, you'd probably say the window for them has passed in terms of first team opportunity, and they might be looking to loan themselves. And you'd expect the forward line area to be quite busy for the first team, especially with no international tournament this summer as well. You'd expect most players to be available, and then the likes of Ngamoa, who's probably definitely going to be included. Morrison for me, Esdaille, somewhat of a wild card. And then there's obviously a player that we've not included here, but it's almost out of fairness because of his minutes, but Alvin Ayman. If he has a good finish to the season and he does play a good string of consecutive matches, he will get a chance at some point. Liverpool don't bring these players in at that level. The the scholarship level if they don't think they can make an impact on the first team. And he really is picking up some momentum in terms of his performances. So he could be a wild card, especially considering we've not mentioned him all. So yeah, I think Morrison will go. If I was a betting man, that's what I would say.
I mean, of course, he arrived from Wolverhampton in the summer, at around the same time as Engelmower. So yeah, he's definitely one to watch. But I think that about wraps it up for us today. Lewis, really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. And if you guys aren't following him, make sure to give him a follow on Twitter, because he is your go-to man when it comes to the academy. But yeah, Lewis, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good fun, man. No worries at all.
And if you enjoyed this episode, do make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast platforms as well.